Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. So on this episode of the podcast, I'd like to feature a conversation I recently recorded with Tom Gonzalez. Tom is a second-year student in our class of 2019, and he is also Darden Student Association President. Tom and I recently sat down to talk a little bit more about his decision to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, what his experience has been like so far, and his advice for prospective students. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here's my interview with Tom Gonzalez. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to help out.
So for our listeners at home, tell us just a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So I am a second-year student at Darden, and I also am serving as the student body president of our student association, the Darden Student Association. I came here from Tennessee. I lived in Tennessee for 5 years working for a chemical company prior to Darden, and before that from South Carolina, so Southeast, kind of born and raised.
So when did you realize that you wanted to get an MBA? Was it something that you always thought about? Was it something you realized after college and you were working for a little while? When did that come to you? Yeah,
it's funny. I was actually talking with a friend about that the other day because I never really gave an MBA much thought in undergrad anyway. And I was in, I want to say my second or third year of working at this chemical company. And I was thinking about what do I really want to do? Where do I want to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And I was drawing a blank. And so I talked to some friends and did some research online and came to realize that maybe an MBA would be a good way to go because it could be a way for me to learn what else is out there, what sort of professions or might I be interested in that I don't even know about today. And so for me, it was, I want to say 3 years before starting at Darden that I really started this MBA journey and trying to prepare myself to get into the schools I was interested in.
So I'm always interested in how students go about the process. Sort of, you mentioned it's 3 years, right, before from when you had the idea to when you potentially matriculated at Darden. And so, what'd you do in that intervening period?
Yes, so because I felt like I was so late to even learning about the process, I tried to give myself as much time as I could bear. So I really wanted to make sure that I prepped for the GMAT adequately. And for me, I didn't start that prep until I was out of undergrad for at least a few years. And so for me, it was signing up for the course. I thought that was the best fit for me, saving up to sign up for that course that I thought was the best for me, and then really dedicating the time to take the GMAT. And I ended up having to take the GMAT twice because the first time I took it, it was an okay score, but not what I thought I could do. So that took a pretty significant amount of time. But then I also knew that grad school was going to be a really big investment. And I took a lot of time visiting schools, finding out which schools I thought would be the best fit, thinking about what my career aspirations were. So maybe there are some schools that are more aligned toward finance or investment banking. And for me personally, I'm not as drawn toward investment banking as some of my peers. And so thinking about, okay, what do I think I want to do after I graduate, and then what schools could help get me there.
Mm-hmm. So when did Darden end up on your radar?
So Darden ended up on my radar because I worked with a guy named Dawei and a guy named Porter that were both managers at the company I was working at, and they loved Darden. And I actually hadn't heard of Darden before speaking with them, but they were in my MBA camp, I guess you could say, prior toward even starting my journey. They were like, hey, have you ever thought of getting an MBA? This was a year or two out of undergrad. And I said, no. And they said, you should really think about getting an MBA, and you should really think about Darden. And so as I began that journey and I started looking at, again, what I thought I might want to do, what's important to me in a business school, Darden kind of checked those boxes because what was one of the main criteria for me was a smaller class size. And as I got to learn a little bit about their experience, their MBA journey, what they liked about Darden, that to me put Darden square on the map. And so that was really kind of my first introduction into Darden. And then, of course, once I got here and sat in a classroom and really got to experience and feel the grounds here at Darden, that made a really big difference.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I've had these conversations with a few people now. Everybody talks about their visit. What stood out to you? I mean, obviously, you talked a little bit about being in the class, but what can you remember that day when you visited? What it was like?
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I've had so many now at this point. I have so many admitted students' days and class visits that I've helped guide others along. They're all starting to run together. But I remember my first introduction to Darden. One of the most memorable parts of what stuck out to me most was that classroom experience. So I think that was really for me where the rubber hit the road in terms of the case experience. So you hear so much about it. You hear how the professor leads the discussion or the students lead the discussion, but it's really hard to know exactly what people are talking about until you've been in it. And for me, it was really eye-opening because I had in my mind a way I was going to talk about the case discussion or the case method in an interview, and then sitting in the class and realizing, okay, it's a little bit different than I had pictured in my mind. But that to me was a game changer because I had gone to other places where it was really just lecture. And that's where my undergrad was just lecture, and I think it's a great way to learn. But I think the case method is very different, and I was really surprised by the insight that the students were bringing into the discussion. So it was really more of the professor kind of conducting this discussion on weighted average cost of capital in some finance class, and it was the students who were really bringing the case forward. And so that to me was just so distinct and just very different in terms of the way the students were learning. That to me, I was also thankful to finally experience it. I'd heard so much about it. So that to me really stuck out.
Yeah, I think oftentimes case method feels very abstract to prospective students. So being in that classroom, seeing it up close and personal, or maybe being in a mock case themselves can help make it feel more real. So what'd you do in the summer before the start of school? How'd you get ready for school?
So I left my job on June 30th. So that was actually a little later than most. But I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with all that time. So packed up my house, and I hopped in the car and drove to Colorado. So my parents live in Denver, and so the dog was in the front seat, and we went from Johnson City, Tennessee to Golden, Colorado. For the course of a few days, I spent a couple weeks out there with my parents, and my wife flew out, and we just hung out for, I think I got there on July 4th. So we got to have the holiday together. She flew back to Charlottesville because we were so fortunate in that my wife, as soon as I found out that I was going to go to Darden, she started looking for jobs and found one almost immediately, and it was a great opportunity. So she moved to Charlottesville before I did, and so after Colorado, I came back to Charlottesville, and then I went to the beach for a little bit. My sister lives in Charleston, so I stayed there for a little bit of time, and then came back and I got ready. I did not opt into doing Darden before Darden, which I think is a great program that helps get students ready for day one, case one, and so I kind of wish I would have done that. But I certainly don't regret playing spike ball in the lawn area of Ivy while my new peers were in Darden before Darden, and I got to explore the mall and just different areas around Charlottesville during the day. It was great. It was like being back in school again, you know, after quitting your job and now feeling like you had the summer off. It was great.
So moving to Charlottesville with a partner, I know it's probably a we thing, right?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
both thought about it. How did you think about that as a family or as a unit? Yeah,
we really made this grad school decision together, and so that's kind of you can trace that all the way back to I think I want to quit my job and go back to school. Is this big discussion, and so whenever we were looking at different programs and looking at Charlottesville. To your point, it's absolutely a we discussion. And looking at Charlottesville, my wife works in healthcare, and thankfully that's a very transferable job, in most places. And so it was getting connected into that partners network immediately, and then for us before we even decided on Darden, getting her connected in so she could say, okay, do they have a robust partners network? Because after talking with a few folks, that's something that's really important. No matter where you go. if you're traveling with a partner, for them to feel like they have a network to plug into while you're plugging into your core curriculum and you're plugging into the library until 11 p.m. or whatever the case may be, that there's a strong support group there for partners. And Darden definitely has that. And so for us, as we were preparing, really Chloe, because again, she came before I did, getting plugged into that partners network and being, kind of just learning the ropes of what it was going to be like to be a partner. And so that for us, as we were preparing to come, getting Chloe plugged in, getting her moved in, and then making sure that I was here, well before school started, so we can kind of get in our routine and talk about what's to come with the core curriculum and cases, et cetera.
Yeah, so the Darden Partners Association, they do a ton. It's been amazing learning a little bit more about that student organization. 2-3+ activities every month, book clubs and social events, and I mean, it seems like a really, really active organization. Yeah,
they are very active. I think that's been something that I know my wife has been very thankful for because, again, we, especially in the first, I would say couple quarters at least, spending a lot of time just getting in the rhythm of case prep and making sure that we feel ready and prepared for cases and for recruiting. So we spend a lot of time at Darden. And the fact that the Darden Partners Association, they'll have a wine night or they'll go to a vineyard together. They have book club. It gives all the partners a lot of different ways to stay involved and stay busy. And I know that there's I think this year it's a pretty even mix of men and women. And I feel like that's really cool too, because it brings everyone together and you can, within the Darden Partners Network, you can find somebody who wants to go bowling with you or wants to open a new book or wants to, they just did something recently that's slipping my mind. But regardless, you can find someone in the Partners Network that, you'll click with and you can find something to stay busy and explore Charlottesville while your student is in the library. Yeah, that first year is a very busy year for folks. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Sure.
So what was it like, adjusting first year here at Darden, getting used to being back in school? I mean, what was the learning curve like?
The learning curve was pretty steep. But I think once my learning team and I discovered our cadence and the way that we thought would be most effective to operate, it really then just kind of became a firing on all cylinders. So that learning curve is starting to learn what it's like to prepare for a case. What sort of information do I need to know? What sort of analysis do I need to do the night before to make sure that I'm ready? And then within the learning team, how are we going to conquer that as a group? And whenever we first started, my learning teammates and I, we did every single case from the first letter to the last period, and then we all built our own models. We all did everything on our own, which there are some groups that I know like to do that, but I will say that is a lot of work, and that's part of the discovery of Darden, right? And it's learning how to work within your learning team. And so once the learning team decided, we all need to do our own analysis. We need to all have our own interpretation of this case or this discussion. But we don't need to do A to Z. We all don't need to do A to Z. And so, discovering that, I think, led into a really effective cadence that we had within our learning team. And so that made the first quarter in particular, the first few weeks, just felt like overload. But then once we started to work out our rhythm, it was much more manageable. And I think we all became much more comfortable and prepared and feeling ready for class and getting out of that learning team room before midnight. For example, we didn't have many nights. Once we found our rhythm, we didn't have many nights where we stayed past 10:30 or 11, and we were ready to go for the next day. So those first few quarters of core curriculum, it's tough, totally manageable. And I think it's just important to have these open discussions with your learning team, because that's also, Darden curriculum isn't just inside of the classroom. I think it's also in your learning teams. It's how you manage your recruiting. It's how you manage your schedule in general. So as long as your learning team establishes norms and an expectation that you'll have a conversation if you're feeling overwhelmed, or you'll talk about maybe what's bothering you, I mean, you can be so successful.
So when do you feel like the light bulb went on for you first year in terms of time management? I've been asking people this question. I'm just kind of curious as to if there's any commonalities when it starts to line up. I mean, maybe still ongoing in terms of juggling all that you have going on. But when did you feel like you really kind of settled in?
So I think I had a light bulb go off about once every quarter. So, and the reason I say that is because the quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3, you have some very different classes thrown in there. So you have ops that comes in later. You have finance that's in 1 and 2, data analysis that gets thrown in there. So in the first quarter, I want to say it was probably 6 weeks in, that light bulb goes off, and then it gets turned upside down again in Q2. Whenever you have this brand new class mix, and there's this element of recruiting that's more thrown in there, I think it goes off again maybe 4 weeks in. And then in the third quarter, again, classes totally mixed up, and then maybe that goes off like 2 or 3 weeks in. So at least that's my interpretation of how I managed through that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking also about our first year students right now who are in the midst of many of whom are in the midst of internship interviewing, which I'm sure you participated in. So you have that layered on top of everything. So where did how did you approach finding your summer internship? How did that process go?
Yeah, I started that pretty early. This was in my kind of self-discovery before coming to Darden and seeking an MBA, was what do I want to do? So I was in product management prior to Darden, and I really liked the aspect of running a business. And so for me, I started my recruiting process with a focus on brand management, because I was trying to what is brand management? That's kind of where I started. But my interpretation is that it's running a business that's a consumer product. And I'm going to use the tried and true analogy of you're the hub of a wheel, and the spokes are leading out to all different organizations like your supply chain and manufacturing and finance, et cetera. And to me, that's really exciting to be the team or the person that's in the middle, kind of help, orchestrate all the activities and what needs to be done to run a brand. So I accepted an internship with Bayer, and I worked on their Claritin brand over the summer and had a really exciting project on millennial and centennial engagement. So how do we look at getting millennials and centennials, whenever they have an allergy need, they choose Claritin. So that was a really interesting and fun project. But I came back to Darden feeling like maybe there's a little bit more to be discovered, and still feeling like I'm not sure that brand management is exactly what I want to do. Again, had a great summer experience, but I did choose to re-recruit. I looked at some other brand management companies, and I also looked at consulting, because over the course of the summer, I talked with several of my peers and heard about their exciting projects they were working on kind of across the map. And to me, it's a great way to get some different experience with some different clients, and quite frankly, give you a little bit more time to figure out what it is I want to do. And so I re-recruited, and I accepted an offer to join BCG full time once I graduate. And so I'm really, really looking forward to that. It's an exciting group, and I'm really, again, just really excited to be headed in that direction.
Which office?
In DC.
All
It'll
right.
be close by.
Just up the street.
Yeah,
so to speak.
exactly.
So that's great. Easy to get back to Charlottesville.
Yes, you'll see me. I'm sure.
So I'm curious about how you decided to get involved with the DSA, Darden Student Association. There's this whole alphabet soup of student organization acronyms. I remember that when we were talking about it on the podcast, because you get lost sometimes. But, you already had a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
So DSA is a significant commitment. As you mentioned, you're the student body president here. How did you think about, taking that on, and what was attractive to you about that opportunity?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to help set the stage a little bit for our listeners, the Darden Student Association, you run on a joint ticket. So I ran with the vice president, and that's how we're voted on. And so the vice president that I ran with, her name is Caitlin, and we are learning teammates. And so after a learning team, we would sometimes just hang out in our learning team room, and we'd just talk about our experience. We talk about what we had learned in the classroom, some just general thoughts about Darden. We both had peers at different programs. So what are they learning, and what are they talking about? What are they working on? And ultimately it kind of just naturally evolved into some things that we would like to change or some things we'd like to see made better or improve. And so that kind of evolved naturally into, I remember the day I called Caitlin, I thought I was going to have to convince her to run with me. And I had this whole spiel lined up, and I told her, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to run for president, and I really want you to run with me. And then as I started into, all of the reasons why I thought she'd be the perfect candidate, I heard her say yes. And so that worked out perfectly. And what we do and kind of the role of DSA to bring it back to the roots of your question is it's very much in line with the way that UVA is kind of run, in that students have a very strong voice at the table. And that's really exciting for us, because if we have an idea about something, or if we think that something could be done a little bit differently, or something as simple as iced coffee, as an example from this past year, we heard from a lot of students that they want to have iced coffee at First Coffee. And so Caitlin and I were the stewards of the student voice. And so that's really exciting. It's really humbling, especially to know some of my peers. And it's exciting because, again, you have that level of ownership and the willingness of the administration to listen and say, okay, give me your thoughts on this, or to take seriously some of the ideas and some of the suggested changes has been really it's been really great. It's been a lot of work because the administration is so willing to hear our voice and to build proposals, suggested changes and rationale, and present an argument and defend it. It's been a lot of work, but it has been so rewarding. And I think that both Caitlin and I would say without hesitation, we would do it again. And we just kind of see now if we'd be elected again. And, it's been
Stick
really
around
fun.
for a third year if you'd like.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. Caitlin was nice enough to do a student profile for the Discover Darden blog, where she was talking a little bit about her experience here. It was interesting to hear her thoughts. She noted that she was an introvert, and she is an introvert, and as she adjusted to life here in Charlottesville at the Darden School, she wasn't quite sure how things were going to go, but her classmates really made an effort to make her feel included, and reached out to her faculty as well. And obviously that's something that had an impression on her. And I still remember her remarks and your remarks as well for the new students when they showed up first day here, and how you both spoke about your experience. And I think it's a great example of student self-governance, the role that y'all play here. So
Caitlin, just to brag on her for a second, I mean, she is a self-identified introvert, and so, but she is so gifted and so smart. And so whenever we would be talking after learning team about things we'd like to just see at Darden, things maybe we'd like to change, thinking, wow, you have so many great ideas and so many potential solutions. That's part of why I was like, I'm going to have to really convince her to run with me. But I think she felt comfortable with partnering up with me, and it's been incredible. If any of the listeners have seen that her comments about her, at least in the first few weeks, I know that I think she's really blossomed, and she thinks she's had an awesome Darden experience, and I'm so thankful to have been placed on her learning team and to now be on DSA with her. She's great.
So we're recording this interview in January of 2019, and so just a few months until graduation. What's on your bucket list of things you want to accomplish before you graduate?
That's a great question. So DSA elections are next week. That has basically been on my mind for the last little while. I just got back from I did a Darden Worldwide course in Dubai. And so before Dubai, I spent some time in Jordan with some friends and got to see Petra, which was really exciting. I am headed on one more last hurrah of a Darden Worldwide course in Italy in March. And so I'm really excited about that. I think for me, as I look toward the end of my Darden career, passing the baton with DSA and a smooth transition is really important. But then also really being intentional about the time I spend with friends, because I have been really busy for my second year. I'm looking forward to it slowing down and being able to just really take it in, to take in Darden, Charlottesville, some of the friendships that I've made here. I'm absolutely prioritizing that as I kind of get to the finish line, because I don't feel like I've missed out on anything, but I do feel like I can maybe strengthen some of the connections I've made since I've been here. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So let's talk real quickly about your Darden Worldwide courses.
Yeah.
So Dubai and Italy, that's not too bad.
And I've been to China, so I'm a little bit different in that I've taken full advantage of every Darden Worldwide course they would let me into, and I had to almost beg the registrar to let me into that last one. So they are an incredible experience. I would highly recommend that anyone who attend Darden go on at least one. And maybe you're crazy enough to go on 3, but if you can, take advantage of it, because what I love about the Darden Worldwide courses is that the 2 that I've been on, they've been about 30 people. And for both of them, we had 2 faculty leads. And so it's a great time to get really close with those 30 students, because you're experiencing, for the vast majority of students on these, you're experiencing something brand new together. You're experiencing a new culture. You're experiencing a new way of learning, because in China, we were at a Johnson & Johnson office in Shanghai, and they're talking to us about how you segment customers differently in Asia than you would maybe in North America, just to give an example. And you're going on cultural visits together. It's hard to articulate how great the experience is.
So last question, what advice would you share with prospective students or someone thinking about an MBA or Darden? What would you highlight for them?
Sure. I think one thing that's really important is, this is such a large investment of time and money, to really get a feel for the culture of the MBA program that you're joining and see if that aligns with yours. Because, again, it's just, you're going to be spending so much time with your peers, time at the school, that it's really important to make sure that that you feel like, to me, Darden feels like home. And so I don't have any reservations about spending my entire day here. And I've made so many great friends. And I think just like where you choose to work, for example, you want to be working with people that you feel like you connect with and that you enjoy working alongside every single day, that they'll challenge your way of thinking and they'll do so respectfully, that you'll be pushed to your limits, whether that's academically or if it's on the field during Darden Cup. But to really push yourself in a way that's like safe and that you'll feel like, I come here and I'm learning something every day. I realize I'm being a little long-winded here, but that's really, I think, what it comes down to is culture. To answer your question more succinctly, it's culture, and making sure, have those conversations with current students, with alumni, and while you're on whatever campus, to try to assess that as best you can. Because I underappreciated how much that meant, but since I've been here and reflecting on it now, I think I more fully appreciate how big of a difference that can make or break an MBA experience.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And that was my interview with Tom Gonzalez, a second-year student in our class of 2019. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached by email at Darden, that's DARDEN, at Virginia, VIRGINIA.edu. Until next time, thanks for listening.